Welcome, listeners, to the Grande Bouffe, the big feast, with myself, Cole Smithey, this week's special guest co-host, Bill Scurry. As always, we here on the Grande Bouffe are here to copiously consume international politics and culture through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer each week. Please welcome to the show, podcaster and video essayist, Mr. Bill Scurry.
It's a pleasure for me to be back. I had a lot of fun talking about Ken Russell the last time we were here, and I'm happy to talk about this movie today.
Yes, we have many bases to cover. Before we roll into the beer, which is, of course, Sierra Nevada 2018 Oktoberfest that we are imbibing, I'd like to just check in with you, Bill, about your current projects.
I have been... my own podcast, the I Don't Get It podcast, has been rolling on. We took a summer...
The I Don't Get It podcast? I don't get it!
We took a summer hiatus because my co-host, he leaves his San Francisco confines and sort of alights across the country. We're not in one place to do a bunch of episodes. So we sort of burn in, I think, like a 6-week break or so. I mean, so it turns into seasons, which is cool. Also, I don't think anybody's really... Nobody minds if we take
I've been taking
a
few weeks off from the podcast myself, and I have to say I feel a little bit of guilt, maybe 10% of guilt, but the 90% far outweighs that.
It's not even a lot of work. Like we record for 60 minutes. I cut it down to about 30 or so, just getting rid of the ums and ahs. But we have fun. We do it for fun. The whole reason why we do it is for fun.
Well, that is
things like that.
That is certainly why we're here drinking beer, talking about this movie, Bob Clark's Dead of Night.
Bob Clark.
Which I have to say, I mean, thank you for introducing this film to me, because even though I have some reservations about the pacing of the movie and the production and lighting design, certainly.
What lighting design? What the hell are you even talking about?
But that said, I think that there's some nice little touches of... Well, as a social satire, it's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's really great as a tribute to soldiers, and who I think by definition, if you've done any time in active military, you suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I think it's a given.
This movie was shot in, I think, 72, released in 74. I mean, the balls on this guy, or him and the co-writer Alan Ormsby, to do something about war. Not that they weren't making war movies, but they certainly weren't making Platoon yet. They weren't like shitting on the war experience and saying it's anything other than the Green Berets. That movie was the rah-rah sort of World War II Korea kind of movie about Vietnam, and it was mostly disingenuous, written from a great remove. And these guys decided to shoot this cheapie in the Tampa suburbs, and it has a very negative, it's pessimistic, if not even cynical, but it's a different way to treat Vietnam when it's happening. I mean, the next year after this, is the airlift right out of the embassy. Like the
right.
visuals of that. So
yep.
You're still in the shit. Like you're still here, doing the thing. We're still following. Maybe we're pulling troops out by that point, but people are still coming back, and there's not a word for it. America really hasn't had that suburban dissolution that this movie shows you. The way the American family is being eaten away by acid. Social acid.
It really puts the onus on... It's interesting to me how powerful this movie is because there's one antagonist, but it feels like you're watching Night of the Living Dead, which of course is also a Vietnam movie, a very direct satire of Vietnam or
conjuring of it. At
least, and it certainly introduces a whole new language, a whole new filmic language. But it feels like with this guy, he's just one person, he's just one soldier. But there's stuff in the dialogue when he talks about how there's millions of us. Yeah. So what if there was a soldier in the truck with the guy? There's millions of us, and it creates this dystopian reality that is horrifying.
The dispensability of the soldier's body, the the way in which each of these guys was a letter delivered to a doorstep. I mean, you saw all that stuff in Private Ryan, which is made very elegiac by Spielberg. And, I mean, that's a visual motif of a movie of watching the green car on the on the hill as it gets closer and closer to your house. And the person in the house knows that that's the attaché coming to tell you that your son is dead. This movie, the guy just shows up at the front door and says, gives him the letter and he says, anything I can do. And the dad gets upset, understands exactly what it means, but the mother is not accepting of reality. She won't have anything to do with it. I don't know what that says about the prevailing, myths of Vietnam at the time, or if that we get into the movie at this point. We get into
I think what it taps into is how all of these characters, for the most part, they're purely indoctrinated Americans.
Yeah.
They're people who watched Leave It to Beaver when they were kids, or when they were young, or they watched Leave It to Beaver. They're Leave It to Beaver minded people.
Sure.
's what I'm trying to say.
Sunday roast beef, mashed potatoes, the whole thing.
They believe everything Walter Cronkite says, and they're a perfect example of how we got where we are today.
Wow,
what I want to say. But what I like about the one of the things that I really appreciate about the movie, in spite of its just complete lacking of tempo, which it really just, the movie dies on the vine so many times when it should really kick, but it does finally kick when the last 15 minutes of the movie redeem a lot of the film, because
the slow burn.
Because they do some good stunts, and there's a scene where somebody gets run over, and that's
good.
That's really raw.
Stuffed pant legs. Yeah, that was good.
But a lot of filmmakers, it seems to me, have taken stuff from this movie, because the tone of this movie, to me, is very similar to David Cronenberg. I know you just did a big Cronenberg thing at a Nighthawk for Kevin Maher.
Yeah.
But the tone is very similar to me to The Dead Zone, another movie with "dead" in the title.
Mm-hmm. I think the tone is actually, I was thinking it's rabid. Production-wise, you keep mentioning the raw the raw design of the thing. It looks a lot like Shivers and Rabid, which, Shivers was contemporaneous. Shivers was Cronenberg's first movie, made in 1975. Rabid was made, I think, in 1978 or 1977. And the aesthetic that you're citing on this movie are these harshly lit rooms with hard shadows. Even when they're outside at night, there are, unscrimmed floodlights just absolutely blasting everything with way more light than it needs. And I guess they just figured, let's fill the shit out of this with light. And no one was sculpting it, but that winds up being de rigueur. That winds up being the aesthetic of the time for people who made cheap horror movies.
Yeah, and they hint at there's a little noir aesthetic that comes up with the stairway being lit from below, so you see the big shadows. Mm-hmm. And I wish they'd gone further with that. Yeah. If they had gone a little further with that, and a little further with the Dutch angles. There isn't a Dutch angle to be found in this movie, and they don't know anything about axial cuts. They don't have their tools are very limited.
No, look, Bob Clark had made one movie before this, and Bob Clark is, if the listener doesn't know, Bob Clark wound up being this sort of old salt director who did a lot.
I think he made 2 movies before this. I have to correct you.
Okay.
The Emperor's New Clothes, and I'm very curious about this movie.
Don't Scare Susan to Death. Is that what it was?
She-Man. A story of fixation. What in the hell is She-Man?
Apparently, it's all the credit you need to make a movie like this. That was what gave the investors enough faith in him.
That's a good answer. I like that. Well, it's a gender bender double feature, man. I'm telling you. I just feel like 1967.
Wow.
68 minutes. Bob Clark made a gender bender double feature. Okay.
That's crazy. That's insane. But Clark is more known for. Clark made Porky's, of course. He made A Christmas Story in 1984.
Porky's a classic.
He made Black Christmas. Bob Clark has a couple of big scores to his name. He settled into doing a lot of bullshit like TV movies. I think he died in 2002 or right. I'm either way, it doesn't really matter. But Bob Clark has this genre credential.
He died in 2007.
2007. Okay, yeah, well, a few years off. So Bob Clark is known for being influential. Black Christmas itself. Talk about, who would swipe this guy? Well, a whole generation of people grew up on Black Christmas.
And Porky's.
And Porky's.
The Porky's movies.
Not that you know Porky's from its style. Again, there's how many actors besides Kim Cattrall actually survived Porky's? The answer is none of them did. They,
There was one, and she's goody.
Yeah, yeah. And so he in his own way is influential. And I mean, this is as far back as I go.
And Black Christmas was the movie he made after this.
Yes, right. That's a good start. I mean, this is a movie a lot of people haven't heard of, for sure. And it's it's a cheapie, like I said, shot in the suburbs of Tampa. Him and his good buddy Alan Ormsby wrote and directed it together. This guy Bob Clark was the Louisiana film director who just looked like he was a young dude who managed to just put together a low budget schlock movie. What I'm amazed in watching it, again, I mentioned before the microphone, before you started rolling on it, was that the first thing I saw was somebody on Twitter had put some stills of this movie up, and they looked bewitching. It was Andy, the character of Andy, towards the end of the movie, is stumbling down a staircase, being led by his mother, and he's blooded, and his skin is sallow and sagging.
Oh, he's a monster.
He's a vampire who's he's unfed. And so you can imagine what that looks like. And I said, what is that? I mean, the whole idea of being escorted by his mother wasn't a visual I'd ever seen before for someone who would be a movie monster. Like, what is that dynamic?
And he doesn't explain. He's not trying to put a fine point on what is going on here. We just know that this kid went off to war, and it fucked him up. And now it's infecting our society.
It's lighting a gas. Yeah, it's like lighter fluid in a fire. I mean, is it worth explaining just lightly what we're talking about here?
Go for it.
So this guy, Andy, was like many soldiers. They don't ever explain whether or not he enlisted or was drafted, but he is shown in the very first frame fighting in Vietnam, which is just a forest in Tampa. But
Richard Backus.
Richard Backus is this character guy. Not that I ever was familiar with him. I think he became like a soap opera actor. But talk about Leave It to Beaver, very blank, plain,
Well, he's doing, what David Bowie did in The Man Who Fell to Earth. He's very alienated character, and all of his movement is very slow. He talks very slow,
cryptic,
very cryptic.
Yeah, I mean, I heard. I don't know if there's any truth to it. They said that Walken was also in running for it, which that could be apocryphal, that could be true, but you can imagine that's what they're.
Well, see, that would fit with the Dead Zone.
It would, sure. So anyway, this guy dies, and his family gets note of his death, and the mother won't accept reality, so the father wakes up in the middle of the night and sees mom is in a rocking chair chanting, "Come home, Andy, come home, Andy." And the next day, he shows up at the front door, haunted, weird, distant, with 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, so there's this crazy disconnect that jolts you into the movie where the officer comes to tell the family that their son is deceased. But he doesn't actually say it.
No.
He just implies it, and he says, if you need anything, let me know. So we haven't really heard anyone say that this person is dead. And then the wife and the daughter are in complete disbelief.
And the dad looks at the letter, and all he says is, "It's Andy."
Yeah.
And he loses composure. But you're right. No one at any point actually mutters the word, much like no one ever says the word vampire in this movie. When this like Martin and Let the Right One In is a vampire movie, not about vampires.
There you go.
No one says Andy's dead. They don't make the explicit. They make the explicit implicit.
It puts you in this surrealist, magical, realist mode for the movie. It puts you in this otherworldly space where the suspension of disbelief, you're there.
Well, the one thing it does too quickly is that from the jump that Andy is returned as a ghoul.
Right.
Instead of just having him show up on the doorstep and there be this mystery about the horrible things happening where local people get their throats gouged out and exsanguinated. And then, then you would put it together that it's a monkey's paw movie. The plot is a monkey's paw, but there's no suspension in terms of who's doing it. It's more like a why do it rather than a who done it, which is okay. But Andy, is returned to them changed. And even though we never really met Andy beforehand, he's not acting like a human being acts. So the rest of the movie is the contortions of watching this guy. He needs to feed, which many other vampire movies have had this idea that you're watching the character do something compulsive that they're not quite in control of. And I brought up Rabid. Rabid's, Marilyn Chambers playing this vampire monster in Cronenberg's Rabid is an incredible performance, first of all. Looks the same. The production values aren't too far from this. It was a cheapie made in Quebec. in 77, 78.
A genre movie.
Can you believe it? With weird sexuality and strange organs.
I love it. I just love it when there's a movie that you can call a genre movie, because everyone just calls everything a genre movie, and it's a genre movie because it's low budget, kids.
Yeah, well, they cut right to the heart of it. The thing is, the woman in Marilyn Chambers' character in Rabid, who is surgeried and turned into a vampire against her will, feeds compulsively. She feeds because she almost fugues into feeding, not realizing that what she's doing while she eats people's blood is she transmits this rabies disease. That's, the bigger thing of Rabid. But it's interesting because there's a woman who's was worked on surgically against her will, and then she's not responsible for essentially what she does. Mm-hmm. So the thing is that Andy comes back, and he needs to feed. Mother is the one who wished him into existence. She conjured him with the power of her force.
And there's
of will.
all these dynamics in the family about, he left because he didn't want to be a mama's boy.
Yeah, the dad was hammering the shit out of mom, yeah.
Oh, boy, there's some misogyny going on in this in this little movie.
Yeah, and the dad is played by, John Marley from The Godfather. He played Waltz, the guy who wakes up with the horse head.
With the horse head. So, and he's great.
He's great.
He's really pouring it on.
I mean, he looks like he's got 70s face. He's got that scratchy beard. It's like, even if he just shaved, you imagine you could put his hand over his face and it would feel like sandpaper.
Yeah.
And he's
looks
got
like that Jim Jarmusch hairdo.
And
that Jim Jarmusch wig.
I mean, I'm going to guess that he was probably 31 when he made this movie. And that's just what guys in the 70s look like. When you could actually cast fucking human beings to look like people. They didn't have to be calendar models.
Right.
And then, Marissa Tomei playing Aunt May in Spider-Man movies. Nothing against Marissa Tomei. Fine, put it in there. But it's like, can we just have something age-appropriate for 6 minutes in a film? Rather than it's like...
okay, so this it's a postmodern vampire movie.
Yeah. Much like Martin. Romero's Martin is very much the same thing.
What year is Martin?
I want to say 73, 74. Maybe I should. It's contemporaneous. It's.
But I feel like it's definitely a movie that filmmakers saw and took notes on. There's stuff in the composition and in the makeup of Andy's face where it reminds me of Magic. Do you know Magic?
I love that
Anthony
movie.
Hopkins.
It's so weird.
Oh,
Anthony Hopkins at a Catskills Jewish resort. Yeah, that's a great movie.
Oh man,
you guys haven't seen Magic? See Magic. It's just a classic.
Magic.
It's a classic.
I saw it when it came out. I was a kid. I was about 13. It gave me the worst nightmares.
It's designed to give you the worst nightmare. There's no way that movie doesn't fuck you up for life. I mean, I was trying to think. There's another movie called Making Contact, which came out in '85. It was about a haunted marionette, like the spirit's using a fucking dummy. Yeah, it's just like that's the the final frontier, or even whatever the Killer Toys movies, those Charles Band movies that they made.
See, now you're making me realize, Bill, that I guess I'm a little slow into Shocktober. I didn't intro the show correctly.
I think people got the point.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Shocktober. It's my favorite month of the year.
It's a good month. I mean, the nice thing is that there are these movies that, again, I don't like. I'm all New York Film Festivals in town now. Yeah. And it's like
I'm skipping it for the first time ever.
Me too. Actually.
There's no Bon Ami there anymore. There's no there anymore.
I like whatever there is there. I just I've been traveling and I've had so many cross.
I think their programming's off.
It's not Toronto.
I mean, come on! If you don't have Von Trier's movie at the New York Film Festival,
fuck that guy. Fuck Von Trier. You talk about the one with Matt Dillon?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I can't wait to see that. It's going to be hilarious.
I have seen... I'm not like a huge Von Trier fan. I just saw The Element of Crime for the first time over the summer, and I was just
It's a student film.
Yeah, and it's like, it looks like it, and it's like... I mean, I've seen 3 films. I saw Nymphomaniac 1, I saw Element of Crime, and Dancer in the Dark, the one everyone saw.
You haven't seen Breaking the Waves.
No.
And that is the movie that is the Von Trier film that you should see.
He occupies the space. I mean, we're digressing.
And Melancholia is really fun too. I really like Melancholia.
I like Kirsten Dunst is really good, but he occupies this space that I like. Yorgos Lanthimos, the guy who made.
He's so much more rigorous. To have done those Dogville movies, have you seen any of those Dogville movies?
I know of them. I know the you said the rigorousness of production and the adherence to.
The dramaturgical rigorousness is what I'm talking about. The writing. I mean, to tackle something like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna, I've never been to America, but I'm gonna put my own spin on how America got so fucked up with its race relations.
Right.
That's a big nugget to bite off and chew.
Sure.
And so I have a lot of respect for Lars von Trier, and also I think that he's one of these people. I mean, he's to me he's the polar opposite of Yorgos Lanthimos. I can't stand that phony.
I get that he's a fucking fraud. Yeah.
But
I think of Von Trier's he looks like the child with the slingshot who's like, me. He's like, I can't believe I was so bad. It's like I'm such a bad little Danish boy.
Oh well, Hitchcock's the same way.
Hitchcock's got bona fides. I mean, yes, he ruined Tippi Hedren's life and all that, but but the thing is, it's like Von Trier's is this guy.
Von Trier.
He starts fires and he just sort of like hides the matches behind his back, and it's like I don't know how that began, and I think
I can see putting him and yes, he does have a very playful attitude. But I like a playful attitude. I don't think everybody has to be.
Don't get me wrong, I love it too.
And his movies, for somebody with such a playful attitude, they're very, very cinematic experiences, and they're not bloated to get there. You haven't seen Antichrist?
No, I have no interest in seeing something.
You should see Antichrist. It's a great psychological thriller.
I guess it is. I mean, there's some directors that are just offered to me full formed, and I'm supposed to go on.
No.
I'm on board
Here's the thing. It's all an exploration. Just like us watching this movie. There's always movies that you will see and not. Whatever. It's just like with who's the guy who did not Heaven's Gate.
Cimino?
Yeah.
Oh no, Terry Malick.
Right, it's exactly those two. So for me, Cimino's the real deal, and Malick is such a phony. Malick made a couple of good movies.
Yeah.
I don't think either one of them are as good as Deer Hunter or.
Deer Hunter's great. I loved Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate.
I loved Heaven's. I saw the.
And also it kills me that there's Days of Heaven, which is Malick's film,
Yeah.
and there's Heaven's Gate, and they always get confused.
Yeah.
At least for me and my brain, and I have to really break my mind to get between them.
That's true. Yeah, there's a lot.
And yes, Heaven's Gate is 10 times better than Days of Heaven. It is. It's a much better movie. It's a much better film.
It's a great film. And Walken's great in it, and Christopherson's great in it.
Oh.
It's really good. It's
Christopherson
really
is amazing.
And Isabelle Huppert is in that too.
Yeah, she's great too.
She shows up in all these things.
And and also for Cimino to see, I'm gonna put Isabelle Huppert in my movie. At that point, that things like that were not done. She could barely speak a lick of English.
Yeah. I mean, but it reminded me a lot of like casting Julie Christie in McCabe and Mrs. Miller, bringing in sort of out-of-town talent who are huge around the world, and you just sort of make a big deal out of it. This is their introduction to American cinema in those movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a little bit of digression, but
I like Andy's Lou Reed attitude when he's in the car with the girlfriend. He's got the dark glasses on. He's totally pulling Lou Reed.
But I mean, Andy comes down the stairs wearing a white turtleneck, and I don't know if they look like plaid pants, but it's light pants. It's a uniform. I almost think I'm surprised I haven't seen this iconography show up either in Halloween or people haven't used how creepy. It looks like a uniform. It looks like an outfit, like a spacesuit.
See, he does. That's why he's got the alien thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and the lighting, again, this is where the austere, overdone lighting almost plays the advantage. By the way, this movie is Tom Savini's first hit. This is his first makeup job he uses.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's crazy. I read that in the IMDb trivia last night.
Huh.
Tom Savini's going to be at Metrograph, by the way, in the middle of the month. He's going to do a Monday night. He's showing up to talk about something, and it's I'm not going to get to see it, which is too bad, but Tom Savini seems like a real interesting guy. But anyway, Savini's makeup, and I recognize him from those ketchup reds, those I don't know what kind of paint he was using, but his blood was the least authentic blood anyone ever used. This side of Fulci and Argento. However, it's
and the Shaw brothers
and the Shaw, right? The orange blood in copious amounts, and no, the texture's not right. But the thing is, it's what he does in the course of this movie. Savini applies. I guess it's like a latex. It's like a drying latex that gives him the old man skin, that crinkled prune skin. And then on top of that, he blasts it with almost like an orange foundation. So he successfully turns this, like you said, a very blank David Bowie ivory-looking face in the beginning when he's returned, and all he has is this simple smile, which is totally hollow. And then by the time you get to the end of the movie and you realize this is a vampire who's not feeding enough, he's sallow. Not to
It's
not
ugly.
to be confused with Pasolini. He's
Right, exactly.
he becomes
exactly.
sallow and ugly, but
Yeah,
also
and also he does a great job on the deceased truck driver, the corpse.
Yeah.
With that
Yeah.
big gash on his neck.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
it looks great.
That's cool. It was red. There's nothing fake about that. And the nice thing is that was like rock star makeup. It's like they put it under the harsh lights, and all of Savini's makeup is not camouflaged by shitty light. They actually throw the light on it, and the camera points right at it, and it survives all of that. I mean, I guess that's, Savini came up hard. He knew this stuff's going to be shot. It can't half-ass. I got to do all 360 degrees of this thing to make it look like.
But the makeup in the movie is great, and when he gets all the blood on his mouth and he's got the eyes, whatever the fuck is going on with his blue cloudy eye things that he's it's creepy as hell.
Right, he sinks Savini sinks the guy's eyeballs in, so they look like sunken sockets of a skull. He's wearing the contact lenses are like that milky cloudiness, and then the cheeks at the same time, it looks like old man.
They're gray,
sallow gray, and then the blood stays on him around his mouth the whole time.
Yeah,
it's part of and then all over the front of his shirt.
Yeah.
So everything stays there. It's like he
degrades and degrades. And also, there's also the idea that he's getting shot, but he's not dying.
That's true. Yeah. I mean,
and there's the one bit where the cop walks over to the car. Andy's in the passenger seat, and the cop just sticks the gun right through the window and shoots him, like point blank. But he doesn't fucking die. So it really is the vampire thing. But because of the way the story is being told in this Americana setting, you have to really be onto it. Mm-hmm. And I can see how some people would watch this movie and not see some of these things.
My question, Cole,
I mean, is everybody who watches this movie gonna come out of this movie saying, "Oh, that was a good old vampire movie"?
Well, my question is that if somebody watches this in the day and age it comes out, it so heavily references Vietnam as a metaphor. The question is that, movie goers have always ranged in sophistication depending on when you sample an audience and what an audience would buy in 74 and what they're prepared to eat in 78 or 85 and then 2005 and then 2018. You get a different rolling goalpost of what you have to kick through to get to people's awareness. So my question is that if an audience member, a rock and roll long-haired audience member who loves bloody movies, nighttime grindhouse movies, which this clearly is designed to do, even though to me this seems more about the metaphor of Vietnam, more about the social commentary. I mean, it does exist in the as a late night, midnight movie. It has that in it, but I feel like there's so much more going on. Does Greg, the man I'm creating for the purpose of this metaphor, is he aware of any of that shit, or is he just like, man, get to the eat, get to the titties, get to the killing?
Yeah.
Is he like kind of salad barring a little bit of the social commentary and mostly the gore, or
no,
with this?
He's missing all of it.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I bring up the idea that movie audiences have.
And there weren't any titties. I'm just saying.
No, that's
from a titty POV.
There weren't too many. I mean, maybe with that slut at the end, maybe he could have got some action with that. But
I just watched The Devil's Advocate again, which is there's a lot of locations on my walking tour because a lot of that stuff.
Taylor Hackford's
but
a great
man,
movie.
when Charlize Theron stands up in the church
and
drops the blanket and she's got all the scars that Al Pacino supposedly left on her.
Yeah.
Woo, Nelly.
And what's her name? Connie Nielsen, who plays his sister.
Right.
There's a lot of good altogether in that movie, for sure. Yeah. No, I like that. I'm a big Taylor Hackford fan. You will find no bigger defender of Taylor Hackford than me. I think that guy, he's such a old school type of, what's the word? It's like he creates these melodramas the way they used to do them.
There's a wind blowing through Shocktober.
And so that movie was great because it has elements of horror, but also bigness. Mm-hmm. Taylor Hackford, like he essentially brought in the gas compressor to fill Al Pacino with 5,000 psi of compressed oxygen to make him as large as you can possibly get.
Well, that's true.
They you know, they never see me coming at them because I'm small. You know,
that's a good Pacino.
His whole thing. What is it? It's
that
sick fuck, that absentee landlord. You can touch. What is it? You can look, but you cannot touch. You can touch, but you cannot taste. You can taste, but you can't swallow. It's fantastic.
Is that from The Devil's Advocate?
That's from The Devil's Advocate.
Oh my god.
He's you know, he goes, I'm a humanist. This is when all the cards are on the table at the end. He's trying to get Keanu Reeves to sign on the line.
Oh, I know the scene in the penthouse. Oh yeah,
it's
the
great.
tower. Yeah.
He goes, are we doing business? He goes, always. Hoo-ah. But
no, it's a great role. But I remember when it happened, everybody acted like Pacino had gone all Nick Cage.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But I mean, he did it very well.
But see, this is what I think is different, is that he did it from a Stanislavski method, where he did create a character. And what happened with Nicolas Cage, I think, after leaving Las Vegas, where he left it all on the field, he didn't bother to create characters anymore. He wasn't doing, you know, his character in Moonstruck is maybe his greatest creation.
So it's fucking fantastic.
And
it's so good.
And his character in Leaving Las Vegas is equally as weighty.
Yeah, I lost my hand. You could lose your whole head. Now,
Johnny has his hand. Johnny has his bride.
Man, you know, if you guys have not seen these movies, no, Moonstruck is a forgotten film. Moonstruck because it's 85, because it's John Patrick Shanley.
It's one of the best romantic comedies. It's right there with When Harry Met Sally.
And it's, you know what, for a movie shot in Toronto, it's a fantastic fucking New York movie. That's the other thing about it too. Oh, and Cher got the Oscar,
which
for
The
it.
Shining is not. Not The Shining. What am I saying? Come on, Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, Kubrick.
Yeah, the Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut. I watched Eyes Wide Shut again recently, and I have to say I found it disappointing.
Yeah, I watched it like 5 times when it came out. I haven't seen it beyond 1999 though.
You know,
2000.
Kubrick does not try and create New York.
No, but he intentionally didn't. That's why he built it all in Pinewood.
It's all just one. It's maybe 2
blocks,
half blocks.
It looks like the Gotham City from Batman Returns. I mean, you know, it's like some New York that was built out in London, and it's just completely artificial. You know, it doesn't help that it almost looks like where Seinfeld was shot. When you see,
I take umbrage at that. We have the city. You can come shoot here. Just come film here. You know, just come shoot. Send out your secondary team to come and shoot location for a week.
Kubrick wouldn't do it. Kubrick would not leave England to do shooting, or you know, he went to the Philippines, I guess, to shoot Full Metal Jacket. But no, for the most part, he rooted himself in and just says, "Oh, we're going to do things here."
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Some second unit stuff was done.
I also think Eyes Wide Shut was not the. It just wasn't the high note to go out on. You know, just like Altman did that.
Yeah, Prairie Home Companion.
Oh my God! You know,
I didn't see it.
It's
not really my thing, you know.
Yeah, better you than me. I wish I hadn't seen it.
How about this scene in the you mentioned something about the All American thing.
I love the postman. I love the detail. He does a lot of great attention to detail, and the actors, he lets them do their thing. The waitress, the way the waitress is with the guys, and there's a little bit of flirtation, and you know, he lets people do their thing, and as a result, you get some good little character stuff out of these actors.
Yeah, they're nice little Our Town type stuff. Yeah, the postman was great because it's like that picnic scene where the postman comes over, bumptiously starts helping himself to their grilled cheese sandwich or whatever, and drinks some sweet tea, and he's talking about the war, and you get it sets off.
And it's also how people manipulate. People do it a lot in the South. You know, Southerners, their whole thing is they kill you with kindness. You know, and then but they're very twisty. And
passive aggression in there.
Oh, it's all passive aggression, and they're just trying to. But you know, like every conversation is just it's a contest for where they can stick a little pin. Like, save that for later.
A hat pin, right? In your...
Yeah, it's another one.
Boink.
Take that. You know, and so he gets that across in the relationship between the mom and the daughter, for example, when the daughter's calling her mom out for not being straightforward with her.
Yeah.
And like you've done this all your life. Like I don't tell you shit. Basically, what the mom's saying. Like I've never told you anything. I don't. Why should I start now? Is kind of how the mom is. And this is another like tradition of the South is how parents with their children, they don't tell their kids anything. Like they don't your kids have no idea how much money you make. I'm just telling you, they don't tell you shit.
They don't know the state of the marriage. They don't know what the footing of the household is at any point. You could say it's not just the South. That's a lot of middle-class households for sure.
Yeah.
Something about holding it all together and just keeping that code of silence. If you're not talking about it, then it's not going wrong. Yeah, and actually, that's a perfect metaphor. Not even a metaphor. It's pretty much exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, it's a text, yeah.
Where they know, the dad knows exactly what's up. It's a text, right. The dad knows exactly what's up. And he is, just completely haunted by the fact that they got this ghoul, and the mom won't wrap her head around it. The mom is carrying water for Andy right up until the very final frame. And that's the thing. I mean, the movie starts off. The movie starts off in one way, where you've got this idea that the kid comes back from the war, and the mother really, wants him back. And then, you see that his situation keeps unfolding, and he's, eating people around town. The bodies start to pile up. He kills the family doctor, so on and so forth. At the very end, the gig is up. Andy has no choice but to, he's covered in blood. He's getting shot by the police over and over again. And they're on a mad dash. Like you said, you're pointing to the action finale. They're on a mad dash to the cemetery. And they get there, and as great as the beginning is and all the the social commentary of, again, using Vietnam, gives over to this real dark sense of creepiness when Andy himself leaps into a shallow grave and starts piling dirt by hand. I have never seen that in a movie before.
No.
It's mom is watching him prostrate himself in a grave, and he's scratched into a marble headstone, Andy Brooks, 1941 to 1972 or something like that. And he doesn't ever say what he's doing. It's purely showing. They're showing everything. And it's like, I'll give Bob Clark mad props for showing mom, first of all, driving him around, carrying the water for him, trying to cover for this kid. And then she's powerless to just watch him saying, I'd rather be in the grave. I'd rather be dead. What does Frankenstein say? Sometimes dead is better? Right? Or no, we belong dead.
Yeah,
we belong dead.
Yeah, we belong dead. And it's true. And especially with Savini's makeup, you really have that those moments, those Frankenstein moments, where you realize you're looking at this helpless monster. He's a helpless monster.
Yeah. I mean, much like Marilyn Chambers. Again, you're talking about it's a situation beyond their control. No one asked for this, but the horror. I mean, of a parent. First of all, the mother already suffered the worst thing you can imagine. She has this break when her son dies in the first place. She gets him back, and then all she does is she gets him back to watch him try to consecrate himself to a grave. Now it's not. He already died in her head once, and it's like he's dying again, and she gets to watch him rot in front of her and then saying, I just want to get back to a grave. There's this French movie that came out in the mid-2000s called Les Revenants. It was really... great conceptual movie. It had Matthew Amalric in it, among other actors.
Oh, Amalric, yeah.
Amalric, yeah.
Yeah, I love that guy.
And it was this thing where all of a sudden in the middle of Paris, or I don't know if it was Paris or if it was another neighborhood, all these people who are dead are wandering the middle of the street, dazed, as if they just sort of were deposited by a UFO. And they're in their burial clothes. And, they're not degraded. They're just essentially returned. And they just all of them look completely mystified, and they're haunted, and they have a 1,000-yard stare.
Uh-huh.
And one by one, they kind of find, this was the husband, this was the grandmother, this was a child. And they're repatriated back to the households that they came from. And the movie would be, the wish fulfillment, the joy of having your family member back. It's like you get a new lease on life. Except the thing is, no one is integrating back. It's like everybody it's artificial, and it's somehow wrong and broken.
Well, it's so conceptually pure and true, and it's what makes this an anti-war movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. Again, that's what I'm saying. Does Greg, the the long-haired metalhead guy from Tampa, when he's watching this movie, understand that?
No.
But
years later he'll go back and watch it again, and maybe he'll get it.
Oh, there's layers. There's layers. I'll get it. It's a movie. A movie like this is made to be rediscovered in 2018 by two jerk-offs talking on a podcast.
See,
you know?
it's so true. It really is true. This is and this is also the for me as a film critic, because I've been a film critic for 22 years, and my last gig was with Forbes, and boy, no comment about that.
Speaking of body horror,
and so trying to continue being a film critic, I used to have, back in '08 when the financial collapse happened, I had 25 clients. I had 25 alt weeklies that were running my stuff regularly, and the bottom just fell out. And now, of course, finally, the Village Voice, which had become a glorified penny saver, finally went under. So, in the media landscape, you look at where film criticism falls, and also the shite that Hollywood cranks out. I'm so, I take chances. I watched the greatest exploitation title, Let the Corpses Tan.
I want to see that. I saw their first movie, Amer,
Uh-huh.
which you actually can't find. I bought a German Blu-ray, and I kind of had to go out and find the subtitles to hand marry them. Yeah, I can't wait to see that. Those guys are not guys. It's a man and female team, very unusual, but they know exactly what they're doing. They are stylists.
They're stylists, and I would say to the point of being working more as art installation more than as narrative.
I'll take it.
But
I'm in for it.
But they definitely they take a lot of chances visually, and they create these layers of artifice and style. It's definitely style over subject or content.
But like you began this by saying tone. You
Yeah.
kept telling me in the beginning that this is like a triumph of tone, and sometimes at the age I'm at, the superannuated 43 years on planet Earth, I'm more into tone when you guys get it right than sometimes I can just really settle into atmosphere and tone over story, depending on when it comes around. Like last week, I was at Metrograph, and Metrograph was doing a Argento retrospective. He was supposed to come to New York, but he couldn't. I don't know what happened, which is too bad because Argento hasn't been to New York in a long time. It would have been really nice to see this guy. He's old, but I don't know what the deal is. Anyway, so I saw Deep Red again.
Uh-huh.
I saw Tenebrae.
Uh-huh.
I've seen Suspiria 100 times, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And, you said, and the thing is, the people who did, who was it, Hélène and Bruno Fauré, Cadillac, the people who made Let the Corpses Tan and Amer, are consciously creating giallo. The idea that the movie is like really going back to like the days of Bava, the days of early Argento, the days of early Fulci. And anytime someone, if they're, like you said, putting it like an art installation, if you're doing it correctly and you're conjuring the tone in exactly the right way. There was a movie called Barbarian Sound Studio by a guy named Peter Strickland, I think his name was. Yeah. And that movie was great too. It's like the same thing.
It feels like you're watching De Palma.
In a lot of ways. Yeah, it's more De Palma with almost like a Fulci type.
I also recently watched Dressed to Kill.
Oh, I haven't seen it in a long time.
Which I got a kick out of. It, too, is on Amazon Prime.
Sure.
Shockingly enough. And I don't know why it's shocking. Everything should be streaming all the time. I just want to, anytime I want to see a movie, I don't care what it is, I want to just dial it up and watch it.
It kind of, most things kind of are streaming all the time. When you asked me the other day, it's like, hey, where do I find this fucking thing?
Yeah.
You're going to be surprised. It's not very hard to find it all. It's amazing.
It's on YouTube.
It was on YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube they bought a catalog as Google did, and this happened to be in there. But it's like
my problem with YouTube stuff is that Vimeo looks so much better. Like half of the stuff that you watch, like the version that I watched this on, for this on YouTube, it just looked like shite. For some reason, everything that you watch on Vimeo, it looks crystal clear.
I was going to say, I thought that like whatever transfer they had, it was super clean. I don't know if there's a Blu-ray this had. I couldn't tell you. Guys like Rupert Pupkin and other disc
This movie
watchers
also
would know.
reminded me of Australian horror movie. I can't think of the name of it.
Some of those Ozploitations.
Some of those exploitation. I'm telling you, I think a lot of filmmakers watched this movie and stole little bits from it. Because there are some tasty little bits in this movie.
It's fun to wonder. It's fun to speculate and wonder, what was the cultural footprint of this? Because again, you're talking about something that if you do more shows for October, I certainly hope that you keep it in this lane because there's a lot of good stuff out there.
Well, I know that James Hancock and I are going to discuss The Descent.
Oh, yeah, Neil Marshall. That's a good one. Have you seen it?
Oh, my God.
Of course you've seen it.
Oh, my God.
Of course you've seen
that poster is I think that may be the best poster I've ever fucking
really
seen.
good.
It's so, you're just, every time you see that poster, you have to look at it. Okay, I got to look at it. I got to look at it. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to sit here and look at it for a couple minutes.
I mean, not for no reason. Neil Marshall has become a big genre guy. I mean, again, not low budget, but he's been...
But see, genre means low budget.
I know it does, but he did an episode of Game of Thrones. He did a movie called Eagle of the Ninth. He's got a nice career going.
Have you heard of this movie called Mum and Dad?
No, I have not.
It's a British... I'm not quite sure if it falls under torture porn. It may well fall into that subgenre, but it's creepy as fuck. It's one of those movies that you better just go ahead and, run yourself a hot bath. You have like the whiskey. You're going to need a whiskey to probably just get through the thing. I mean, it's rough and rugged. So I'd like to do that one. I was going to do that one with Mikhail, but Mikhail's off on a filmmaking bender right now.
Yeah, he's on a jag,
so I don't know if that's even going to happen. So, I got you and James lined up. I certainly need a third person. I was hoping to get Jeremy Workman.
Oh yeah,
but
you've talked to him, sure.
His movie's coming out.
Yeah,
The World Beneath My Feet.
I know he's gonna have a rollout at the Quad Theater.
Something like November 16th. I think that movie's going to come out. So he wants to come on the show closer to the time of his film's release. Perfectly understandable, but skips Shocktober.
Yeah.
Shocktober. So I have to say. I need some help here. I got to, because if Mikhail falls through, then I want somebody else to come and talk about this creepy British horror movie called Mum and Dad.
What year is that from?
I'll tell you in a second.
Is it a recent dealie?
It is. Yeah, it's not so long ago. It's probably 10. It's probably 10 years ago.
All right, but
we're
not talking like 1971 or something like that.
No. It's certainly something that has come about in the age of which is now the subgenre I think has gone away of torture porn.
Yeah, I mean the British part reminded me. It's
definitely a video nasty.
In my video work that I'm doing on the
2008 Mum and Dad.
2008.
It's Mum ampersand Dad.
Mum and Dad.
Mum and Dad.
I'm doing an episode about haunted houses in film and comparing and contrasting them.
Ooh, that's fun.
Oh, it was nice. Yeah, I mean, it's like I realized I'm not scared of horror movies, but they don't have the same appeal as a haunted house film. And it's like I was like, well, what about good haunted houses? Let's see what the good ones do and the bad ones do and what's in common. And there was
Please tell me you talked about Rosemary's Baby.
No, didn't really think because I'm keeping it a very strict haunted, and it's the thing is
ghosts,
not ghosts, haunted house. Ghosts are different than a haunted house. That's the thing. The line was thin and the domicile needs to be cursed. You can't be the inhabitants. I wound up I loop it back.
Amityville Horror.
Uh-huh. The Shirley Jackson the Haunting, which is fucking incredible. 1963 or 61. That's an insane movie. They remade that one with Catherine Zeta-Jones in like 2000 or 99. John DeBont directed it. I mean, I've included Beloved. Beloved is a haunted house movie, if you want to think about it, and I think it really fits.
What about the others?
The others is a ghost story. I mean, they haunt the house, however, it's from the vantage point of the ghosts, and so I excluded it. I considered it for a hot second, and I left it out. But there's this English movie from '71 called The Legend of Hell House.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Hammer film. Whoa. It is, I mean, Roddy McDowall's in it. It's
love it.
Oh, it's really, really good. And I was like, what a surprise. What a fucking fantastic treat to stumble upon a movie like this. And so it's a Richard Matheson script. So, it was an American screenwriter wrote something that was filmed, by Hammer Sensibility over in England. It's like, that was one shit hell of a horror movie for sure.
Wow. Yeah, The Legend of Hell House. I want to watch that now.
It is, and I had a lot of difficulty finding it. I mean, I had to go, steal it off the torrents, as it were.
Yeah.
And I was like, but fuck you. Like, I'll pay money. Just make it available and I'll pay money for it. It's like, if it's not, I'm going to steal the fucking thing. It's like, that's just the way it is. Sorry. I'm the bad boy. I'm the nonconformist.
You and me a little. I mean, a lot. Did I say that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, well, how are we going to close off this episode of
Shocktober? Well, people should watch this movie. I mean, I feel like when you get adjusted to the production value I think that the layers here dance independently of one another and give you a great experience. As you say, the movie has a killer premise. It has a great performance by Bacchus as Andy, the sort of ghouly ghoul. The mom and dad are great. The film it's inside is weird and bulky, and it has all sorts of performance issues in terms of, like, what do you say? It was the speed and the pacing.
The tempo. Well, the problem that I have is that, and this is the thing that you see in new filmmakers, is they don't know how to vary between scenes. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some nice segues. I like the segue when it's his face or something. There's blood, and then it goes to the pictures of him as a little kid. Yeah. There's some very nice segues, but you're not getting the inertia. Yeah. You're not feeling this inertia, this tempo, this building, and you have to play. And this is tricky stuff that if you're a filmmaker who's been around the block a few times, you have to build all this stuff into the performances of the actors.
You got to do it on a concept.
And I've seen directors take a metronome and have a different metronome marking for each scene. And if you're that kind of filmmaker, you can really. De Palma does it great. I have to say, in Dress to Kill, there were some moments in Dress to Kill where the suspense just gets you going so much that you don't want to. You don't know what to do with yourself. You don't want to sit there. It's like, I want to leave. I don't want to. This is too much for me.
Yeah, blowouts like that. I mean, De Palma is a great example. I mean, even Phantom of the Paradise. Phantom of the Paradise just leaps off the screen. There's just so many great things about it. He's a guy, again, he doesn't need a metronome. De Palma, that's the one thing, no matter...
Well, he does it, I mean, there's doesn't with his skin a cat. He does it just by the way he talks, by the way he sets the mood of he does it in that way, and just by his being. That's like Miles Davis. I mean, the same thing. You want to wonder, how the hell did Miles Davis get these fucking musicians together? He never played with them before.
Doesn't matter. It works.
How the fuck did he do that?
It's a native tongue.
It's a native tongue, and it's an artistic way of being, and it's about relationship and having those artistic expectations, and everyone is they've been chosen. They're there for a reason. They're there to do their thing, and this person makes all of that stuff possible. That's what being a director is I think the reason that it gets so it turns into all this hyperbole, about being a filmmaker, is because there can be a lot of artistic expression and clarity and stuff that happens, through this ensemble experience that
Gestalt,
that is filmmaking. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Shocktober. The movie, everything you just described makes me not look forward to the Halloween remake that they're putting out. You're talking about, like, Halloween to me is not my favorite horror movie.
No, mine either.
I mean, even for Carpenter, I think he made better.
What's your favorite horror movie?
My favorite horror movie. Right now, actually, I brought up Hell House because it's really just stylistically the Dickens. It's really a hell of a movie.
All right.
No, I don't. I mean,
I still have to stay with.
Shining is great.
The director's cut for Exorcist.
Been a long time. Exorcist 3 was really good.
I haven't seen Exorcist 3.
Exorcist 3 is good. There are two versions of it. Blatty had one that he edited himself.
Oh, wait a minute. Come on, this isn't the one that Schrader directed, is it?
No,
Schrader
did Dominion. Schrader did.
That's the one where they made two versions of the same movie.
Rennie Harlan and Schrader played off each other's footage. That was one thing.
How did that even happen?
Doesn't make sense.
Does that wait a minute? You're lying. That didn't really. I dreamed that. That didn't really happen.
It was a gas leak in your apartment. It seemed like it happened. No, but the thing is, Halloween being directed by David Gordon Green. You saying the thing about the native language of a director. Working in the camera on set, understanding with metronomic type pace. Yeah. It's like, well, David Gordon Green can do a lot of things really well, and it's just like we've never really seen him do horror. And I wonder, it's so well worn and trodden ground by this point to do a Friday the 13th, the Halloween movie, and so many various people have done them with various levels of success. Not really good.
See, I guess I would say Texas Chainsaw Massacre if I wasn't going to cite The Exorcist. Mm-hmm. I would cite Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I watched it and I was really intellectual about it because I only saw it about 2 or 3 years ago for the first time. I think the griminess of it put me off rather than the unsavory. It was more like, this looks like a rough film, just content wise, style wise. And I watched it, and I heard a lot of really brilliant people, guys like the pinksmoke.com, John Cribbs and Chris Funderburg have talked about it. Kevin Marr goes at length about it. These guys are all appreciators of Tobe Hooper. And I like Tobe Hooper's films. But I found like watching Chainsaw, all I saw was how thin the actual film was. Like I saw the production value of something done on a shoestring in Texas for pennies and dimes with local actors who were annoying. And, as the visual iconography, as blast out of your asshole as it was when that movie came out, looks quaint now in comparison to what other things, practicals can look like today.
See, I think that adds to that movie because it's so rough.
Yeah, it looks like it's happening in front of you.
Yeah,
as well. That's the documentary style of the camera. All that Tobe Hooper myth making. I don't disagree with any of it.
Yeah,
it's just for some reason it didn't fishhook me. It didn't like get me and say, this is
I even like the remake of it that came out 10 years ago, whatever the hell that was.
Yeah, it made a lot of money. That one, and Jessica Biel was in it. I think. Probably like 15 years.
Yeah, it's a very suspenseful.
Michael Bay produced. Now that I think of it, yeah, weird.
The movie always reminds me of I Spit on Your Grave, which is, again, the most awesome genre movie title ever.
Yeah, was it the Ruggiero Deodato's, was it Green Inferno?
Yeah.
The Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
Talk about movies like that. Certain horror films.
Did you see that Eli Roth thing from a few years ago?
Oh, that was like a remake of that. No, I didn't.
I didn't see it.
I don't really believe Eli Roth as like the guy. It's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's not my thing.
No, I think I like Ty West. House of the Devil, which we covered about a year ago.
Yeah, and Wingfield is good too. Adam Wingfield, Wingard. What is his name?
What has he done?
He did You're Next, which is a fucking insane survival horror movie set in a house. It's like people are being picked off one at a time by guys wearing like animal masks, almost like as a motif. And that someone inside the house, they're bunkered inside the house, nailed shut. And they got fucking crossbows and garrote wire, and it's like they're trying to kill everyone one by one. It's like a holdup, a heist thing. And that somebody inside the house is in cahoots with them because it's like a wealthy family. And you get the impression like maybe one of the kids is angry and selling the family out because he's just got... But it's great, and it's like, last woman survives. She makes it to the end, and she takes out these animal masked sort of like raiders. That Your Next was like classic. Talk about like really seeing, brightly lit Wednesday afternoon. I was home. I'm like, let's put this in, and it's like great horror movie. Didn't have to be in the dark watching it, and it was just great. Maybe it's more of a thriller. But
I like this part of Shocktober because we just talk about Shocktober. We just talk about scary movies that people should see, like The Vanishing, the original Vanishing. Do you know
the George Schleiser one. No, I've seen. I saw the remake, which is a mixed bag. But
the remakes.
But he did them both, so.
And also Hanukkah did both versions of Funny Games.
That's true.
And Funny Games. Oh, and there's a little bit of Funny Games in this movie too. I got a little Funny Games vibe from this movie because he's wearing white and the way he's walking like an athlete. He walks, even though he walks slowly, he almost like a mime or a dancer or something. He has that lilt Andy does.
He's turning it on a little bit
in this movie. That just anyway.
Hey, speaking of Hanukkah, talk about
Hanukkah.
Hanukkah, right? Hanukkah. I speak German. I should know that. He, like one of his most effective movies you would not quantify as a horror movie is, to me, The Seventh Continent, which I think was the second or third film.
Yeah, Benny's Video and
I haven't seen Benny's Video.
Seventh Continent, and there's one other one too.
Yeah. But that movie is like so just flat and plain and just like, here's the thing, and you just do not know what's going on until you get to the very end, and it's like that winds up being scary, the most horror, and it's just shot in the middle of the day in an Austrian suburb. That's just wind up being crazy.
Those Austrians scare me. They really frighten me. I mean, why I would say that more than Americans who are hell bent on shooting each other every second of the day.
I mean, because they're like much like the White Ribbon, they have this, the roots of 20th century fascism come from Bavaria in Germany and Austria. So it's like you get to build on this whole thing. You get to bolt on this construction of modern social horror, not just like the horror.
So what I'm getting from you is that Werner Herzog would be more of a nightmare than Donald Trump as our president.
No, I would. Herzog, man, he's just about my favorite living director. Him and Alexander Payne. So
I have a Werner Herzog story.
Yeah.
I was interviewing him for Grizzly Man, and he was stuck in traffic. So there's about 4 or 5 of us sitting around a table in this hotel, waiting for Werner to arrive. And the guy next to me, can't remember his name, but he wrote for the Staten Island Express, and he, I don't know, there was commotion when Werner came in the room. People are kind of wrestling around for, are you going to stand up and greet him or whatever? And so we're shifting around in our chairs, and somehow the guy next to me reached out to shake hands with Werner and knocked a glass of water over, and my camera was sitting there right in the middle of the table. And Werner was like a cat. This guy's like 70 years old. He reached out effortlessly with this lightning. It was like Bruce Lee with this lightning speed, and he grabbed the strap of my camera and yanked it up out of the harm of the water as it was spilling. It was crazy.
I saw him. I've seen him a couple of times live in New York. Never like personally, but there was this one time he was up at the Museum of Modern Art. No, the Met, talking about the role of music in a film, and he was using his films as examples. And so he would talk a clip, and they would throw the theater dark, and then he would show the clip. So he made a documentary for Netflix. Came out earlier this year, called Into the Inferno. It's about volcanism or volcanology.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. It's great.
Really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
I mean, it kind of winds up being about the culture of volcanoes more than the magma and everything like that. Mm-hmm. Anyway,
but you get to see a lot of magma.
You get to see a lot of cool magma, and him in a silver suit, and he's really in there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he's saying. He's saying, okay, I'm going to show you the beginning of the movie with two different passes. One music we could get approved and one music we didn't get approved until you see what you think. And so they put the lights down and they start playing the clip. And the movie was sponsored by Netflix. It was produced by Netflix. Obviously, he made it and then they shopped it to him. So they would put the Netflix logo on the screen. And Herzog went into his microphone. He went, Netflix. As if I know it happened. It's like Herzog watched the cut of the movie 100 times, and every single time the Netflix, and he must have said that as an inside joke in the editing bay. He would say Netflix. So every time I've seen the Netflix come on, I say that to my wife, Netflix. At least the guy still has a sense of humor after all these years. I love it.
All right. Well, I think that's a fine note to end this episode of Shocktober with Mr. Bill Scurry.
Shocktober.
It's so much fun to say. I just love it. You have to visualize the exclamation mark. Please do us a favor and go to colesmithy.com, where you will find my Patreon button at the top, and you can contribute $5, $10, $20 a month, as many of our Grande Bouffe podcast alumni, such as Bill, see fit to do.
Absolutely.
It's a wonderful thing.
It is a good cause.
And also, please do everyone in the world a favor and turn your cell phones off in the movie theaters. Just,
Don't be a fucking dick.
Look, I'm going to tell you, you could if you really can't handle it, turning your phone off, if you just make yourself a little pouch out of aluminum foil, your phone will not ring or anything while you're in there. Mm-hmm. So at least, you wouldn't have to worry about that. But that still means you have to leave it there. You can't take it out.
It's a Faraday cage for your phone.
And hey, if you like Le Grande Bouffe and you think that this is a good message, maybe that's even a better reason to get yourself some rewards from Patreon. Thank you all so much for our listeners all over the world for listening.